So, sorry, hold on. My name's Tim Cervini. I work in the digital measures engineering department under Damien and Evan. I am currently starting up a project that hopefully will be using the SQL on FHIR for an assessment side so that, clients, vendors, and the like have the capability to, be able to look at their data before it gets processed through that then we can end up using in other tooling that we have. And I know I saw some of you at the Connectathon in Phoenix, so good to see some of the same faces I got to meet there.
Yeah,
so
welcome. And what the name of the company? Sorry.
I'm with NCQA.
Oh, NCQA. Okay, so that's NCQA. Yeah, welcome again. And Angelo, can you tell a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. I'm Angelo Castrulis. I am the principal technologist and CEO of a company called Carrera Group. We're a small consulting firm, but we're pivoting the product now. We've got our first commercial SQL engine about to be launched on the 25th, 2 days from now. It's ready to go to market. We're super excited about that. And my background is health IT for the most part. I was involved in the standards early on, back in CCDA, and I studied data systems at the Data Systems Lab at Harvard, where my focus was on AI. How do you use AI to tune data systems? Particularly, my research was on joins. How do you make joins and scans faster? So that was my background. So I love SQL. I just want to say that. Even though we built a commercial SQL engine, I love SQL. So that's me.
Okay, maybe that's why you built SQL engine. Maybe you first think that this is SQL, yes, but that was.
I thought it was Cassandra query language. And
it's quality language. Welcome.
Great. So I think Damien introduced himself last time. Damien works with us at NCQA, so I won't make him do it again. Great. So for today's meeting, I posted the agenda in the chat. Yeah, just wanted to get some feedback and reflections about the Connectathon. From my own perspective, I think it was super exciting to see it come together. It was, honestly, like pretty ad hoc and quick, and we kind of just threw it up. So, I think it had a couple of rough edges, certainly for my presentation, but I think it was, when you see it as a whole, I only saw the first session. I unfortunately couldn't go to the second day, but, when you see it as a whole, it's pretty incredible. It's really great to see this milestone of the work we've been doing on these calls, and outside of the whole complete package, it was great to get a sense a little bit about how you, Ryan, you, Nikolai, thought about some of the bigger picture, so because we're pretty deep in the weeds. So I just thought it was a great sort of milestone as our first sort of public presentation of this as a whole. And then, of course, all the implementations from, you, John, FHIR, I saw you on the call as well. So that was my perspective. So just want to hear how you guys thought about it.
I loved the demos, the very solid talk by Ryan, too quick talk by me. Yeah, but because it was kind of strange to be. I think we were needing like 3 hours to tell what we need, what we wanted. Yes, but we only have 1 hour for demos and for this stuff. So, but yeah, I really like it. So I hope that we will get the recording and put it on YouTube for the rest of the world.
I have posted the recording, yeah. Nikolai. So you should have seen it in there. I can post it again.
Okay, yeah, let's publish it.
Yep, that'd be great. Other thoughts from folks who attended? How did day 2 go, actually? Because I unfortunately had to do something else for day 2, but how did that roll out?
It was good working session. I think we discussed tests, and I think we have a lot of stuff to discuss today.
Oh, terrific. Getting our hands dirty. Okay, great. Well, before
we throw in that I was real impressed with some of the demos, and yeah, everybody did a great job. It was cool to see what you guys have done.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I think it's interesting because once people start to realize that there's a lot of actual implementation momentum, I think they'll appreciate that. So if there are no other thoughts about the Connectathon, hi Josh, I wanted to ask about, Dev Days is coming up in May, I want to say. So wanted to see if folks would be interested in doing a session, or what people's thoughts are for Dev Days.
Is it May or June? I think it's June.
Yeah, June.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And I think I was thinking May.
Yeah, the Connectathon is May.
I mean, I'm happy to help out with whatever. I haven't actually got around to putting in my submissions yet. I've got to put in some things on other topics as well. But if there's any way I can help with this SQL and FHIR stuff, just let me know.
Yes, I have one idea so that we can repeat what we did on Connectathon, not as a roundtable, but as a group talk, let's say some intro and demos and put it in one session, maybe 2 hours. But it's uncommon format, so we can discuss it with Reen and others organizers. If they like it, so I think it would be nice to have like one session dedicated to SQL on FHIR with the demos of all implementations, yes, and some introductory words. If they don't agree, then I think everybody can submit their own implementations, and I don't know, or we can choose one guy who will present like SQL on FHIR. I think that the Ryan's talk was very nice, and we can help Ryan to tell like, what is SQL on FHIR.
Yeah, so I think that I can't imagine they would object to like a sort of like a roundtable, like of a bunch of distinct groups showing the SQL on FHIR presentations. I mean, so yeah, we'll wait. I wouldn't want to put words in Ryan's mouth or others, but I definitely encourage that. I think like the only question that I have is like whether we want to have it in multiple sessions, because I think we would imagine we would, because there's quite a bit of content, and give chances that people a chance to focus on different areas. So maybe one way we could organize it is like I'd be happy to present or co-present with members of this group an overview of the spec itself, if folks are interested in that, and submit that as one talk, and then maybe we have another session that looks at sort of like the implementations, and that way it kind of makes it sort of a nice sort of level playing field with multiple folks presenting, so that way no one's sort of monopolizing or their specific implementation over others. So I think it's kind of what I'll toss out there as a straw person starting point, see what people think.
I like that idea of not having one necessarily gigantic session. I think it might be a little too content heavy, right? I think we experienced a little bit of that probably in the Connectathon. We were going relatively fast too, but something with a little bit more space, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half for implementations, that kind of has the right feel to me. But maybe let's start there. I'm happy to maybe Ryan and I can work together on proposal if that suits the team, then I can talk to Reen as well. So
yep. Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think we need to fit it like into the general structure, because I mean, there's a couple of different talk types, right? So I think there's like a 45-minute would be like a standard length, but that includes they have like 10 minutes for Q&A. So yeah, we definitely would want to break these things down into multiple sessions, because there's way too much for one. I think FHIR raised his hand.
I'm sorry that I might have my camera off. I'm outside, so yeah, we have so I think our product manager is putting like a proposal for our work. It's not just the SQL on FHIR v2 implementation, but I mean in general the work that we have done. And then I guess part of it would be, because last Dev Days we said that our vision is that we want the data warehouse to become like an implementation detail, and so this is like a stepping stone toward that direction. But I think the proposal that he's putting together is around that. I just wanted to to let everyone know. Obviously, I think the idea of having like a roundtable and something similar to what we did in Connectathon, I think sounds great. And I would love to contribute if there is any room for us. Yeah.
I don't think they contradict. So I think the dedicated implementation session.
Exactly. And to everyone's point, I think are like the demos. I loved really the demos, the ones that I see from other teams, but I think it was too short. But 10 minutes for each of the demos was too short. And then having more awareness during Dev Days about the work like SQL and FHIR v2, I think that's great. Shouldn't be limited to just 1 or 2 sessions.
But from other side, this is our strong point, that we have multiple implementation. It would be nice to show it in one place, so people understand there is no vendor lock, so there is multiple implementation.
Yeah, I see it as additive. I mean, I think people should, I think having a combined longer implementation session, as we talked about our demo session, and then, if folks want to talks for, their particular implementation, I think that seems totally reasonable to me to do that, particularly in your case where it's a broader project rather than really specifically focused on FHIR. So that'd be my take.
Yeah.
Okay, so to do for me and Ryan to lead those proposals and communicate with Reen on that. So dev days. A couple other housekeeping arrangements here. We did, unfortunately, we're not able to get to a couple sessions that we wanted to, unfortunately, because of time. But what I wanted to propose, which is what we proposed previously, was to have focus sessions during this time period on SQL on FHIR plus OMOP, SQL generation. Actually, that probably should come first. And then the longer term roadmap. So wanted to put that out there. I can put up polls for folks, but the general plan, as it was before, is to have focus sessions on those particular topics during this time. Everyone's still good with that plan?
I think yes. So I would suggest to maybe think about some goals and objectives for May Connectathon. I think we can try to make the first draft. So at least commit to that. So publish like first draft in May. So this will, push us to finalize, because I think we kind of almost decided on features, yes, and we need documentation tests and implementation in the group. So, and I think it's a good goal to have a first draft in May.
Yeah, I skipped around a little bit on my agenda, but that was up next. So
okay, sorry, yeah.
No worries. Put it out to the group. What do we think about committing to milestone 1 first draft type release at the May Connected? People feeling good about that? Thumbs up from Ryan.
Yeah, let's stop.
I mean, it feels like we're narrowing to that point, right? And so May gives us 4 months. That seems a set of time to firm up the spec into ways it needs. It needs some work, of course, but yeah, I think we're all good for that. So I'll write that down. That's going to be our target date. Great. Moving right along. There was a thought, and this came from you, Nikolai, I think a couple of weeks ago, as you're working on some of these implementations, or you're doing sort of a fresh implementation, I think, in JavaScript. I wanted to put that out there to potentially, and you can just do this ad hoc or casually, have maybe some time for working sessions with folks, like as you're developing, do some co-development, pair programming kind of thing. I don't think that's great for this hour, which is where we kind of handle administrative stuff and things like that. But, I just wanted to re-raise that idea and get that out there for folks.
Yeah, if enough people are interested in coding together, like a walking through implementation, yes, so I'm okay to go through JavaScript implementation. It's quite clear now, so it's quite easy to explain what's going on in implementation. Yeah, and that may help people to join us. I don't know, so they feel that it's, at least in memory, it's quite easy to implement if you have a FHIR engine.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll at least put that on the
Another session will be about how to implement FHIR. Yeah,
I'll put that in the notes. You advertise that session on Zulip. I'll just say that Nikolai is open to people, reaching out to have these kinds of co-development sessions or walking through the JavaScript implementation. So I thought that was a great idea. And so I wanted to re-raise that.
Yeah, and I think that's important, because if we decided that we are like working on spec and the ref implementation is a part of the spec, so the more people should understand the reference implementation as well, to make changes and writing tests and implementing features.
Yeah. I would be interested, because I haven't really looked at the reference implementation as well. So, getting a deep dive into it would be awesome. That's all I had for the agenda. I know there's been some discussion about a couple of different topics in the past day or two. So I'll just open it up to the floor for any topics we've been discussing or anything else.
I think, sorry.
Yeah, I was hoping, Nikolai, maybe you could take us through what you've done and just sync up on where we're at with the testing.
Yes, because it's kind of breaking change, and yes, and we should converge quickly on this. Yeah, I can walk quickly what's broken, and can you see? Okay, so that's the repo, and we have reference implementation in sof-js. So most of files in SRC. So the main implementation is here. Here is a validation for view definition, and this is helpers for the pass. So, and it's quite short. It's only 200 lines of code for main implementation, another 60 for FHIR pass, and a few for validation. So you can read it in an hour. And here are the tests, which are written in JavaScript, at least for this time. And while they are run, you can work with this test just with a JavaScript test. So you can run this test and see the results. It should work in any IDE which can handle JavaScript, but it will generate test cases in JSON and put them into tests folder here as well. You can put test case right into test folder, and both now is working. So some tests are generated by JavaScript, and we can put another tests in this folder. But when we were talking about like contribution of the test, I still think that it's not so much labor to write this test in JavaScript or JSON. The more complicated part is unify this test with other tests, so to give like a quite clear view of the tests. And for me, it doesn't matter, are they going to live in JavaScript or in JSON, but I think we should care about authoring the tests. So not just I don't know, collection of not related tests, but having some logical structure, similarities and simplicity, and this will need some work to do. So okay, this is just a note. So the breaking change that now the tests folder contains just test JSON files. For reference implementation, I moved the old test folder for some time here in legacy tests, and the old reference implementation is here. The new reference implementation is passing now almost all these tests. I think only 2 failing tests, and we can discuss them. And eventually I will delete the legacy tests. What else? Yeah, so that's it. As well, I fixed the page with a sandbox, so it should work and should be published on every build.
So I've finally got a bit of time to work on this, and I've come up with a bunch of what I think are missing test cases. I've actually opened up an incomplete pull request with them just in JSON format. How do I go about integrating them into this?
So I would suggest you just go to Soft.js tests and just contribute this test right here. If you're okay, so let's try to do this. So you write this test here and you run this test, you see that it's passing, and or from the shell you can do like like this. So ban test and it will work. So that's my recommendation, and we can discuss this test together. Yeah.
What's the combination suite about?
So combinations is about different keywords on the same level. Yes, so because we decided that we can put like for each column, union and select in one node. Yes, and it's dictated by my vision of the model of view definition, which is just the functions. Yes, so essentially if it's expanded, every node should be just a specific function, select or for each or union all, and then you see like for each and column it's just a sugar which say that it's for each select and column inside, and we can translate all this, like let's say for each column and union all, into nested nodes, but each node represents the function, and this will bring us clear semantic how it should behave. So we split the problem into this translation syntax rewriting into, I don't know how to call it, like some normal form, I don't know, of the DSL. Yes, and then this normal form can easily be interpreted because every node will be just a function. So it's still experiment, but for me it's very helpful. So it's a good framework to understand now the question. You said how for each union all should behave, how should behave in nested union all. If it's just concat operation, so then the answer is clear, yes. If the union all is just a concatenation function, so then the behavior of this function is completely clear, yeah, whether it's nested or not. And the same about the rest. If we all agree on this, yes, so that it may help to even reason about the spec and about the features. If you want, I can walk quickly through this functional model, because I walked through it on a connectathon, or we can have another session for that.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. So I think maybe last week or it was before we discussed this, I'm not sure, but are we going to have the test in this form, or instead can we have like the JSON, like, the view definition JSONs as the language for the test? And then, when, regardless of how we produce those tests, we can just drop them into the repo. And then if you want.
Yeah, both, for now, both will work.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see.
And eventually we can decide go away from generated tests, from reference implementation, or maybe we will decide to keep it. Because as I said, for me, I think just contributing tests it's easy, but keeping these tests consistent for implementers is another important task. And then it should go through authoring. Like you're not just like throwing test cases. Yes, you aggregating all these test cases into some, I don't know, unifying test case. Yes.
Yeah,
So it's
I guess
covering all possible combinations and all this stuff, not just one example and like multiple, like puzzle tests. Yes, so they should have a structure and they should help to understand what features are implemented, what are corner cases, and so on. So, and this work is like, yeah, this is more work than just dropping the test. So you can drop the test and I can rewrite it in a JavaScript or incorporate into other tests. So let's see how it will work. I don't know, but my point that we still need some effort on authoring tests to make them more consistent for the.
Yeah, so I guess I see your point and I agree. Like, I mean, having many tests, it usually becomes the problem of how you actually create those tests. But the point, I guess, is that because not everybody uses like JavaScript for implementation, also, implementing the test. So let's say, if I'm implementing with Java, I will have a framework to create tests. Then I have many tests in Java. Yeah. But then, so I would benefit from the JS implementation. So what I'm suggesting is that maybe we can keep the JSON format.
Yeah, we do keep for now.
Yeah,
for now it's a part of repo, and you can submit your tests, or we can work like this. So you will submit the test, and I will rewrite it in JavaScript, incorporating into other tests. Let's see again. So I'm not forcing this for some time. I'm just asking permission to do this, and when the test set will be finalized, we easily can throw away the JavaScript part and just go with a JSON representation. But
Nicola, if you're hand curating a set of tests in format of your choice, could you also just have an automated script so that everybody always has a JSON view of those tests that's checked into the repository? I'm just thinking about divergence of tools for people who are trying to run those tests today. It would be nice if they had the curated set.
Yeah. This is exactly how it works now. So test submitted twice in a test folder as a JSON and in a JavaScript, but the JavaScript is a source of truth.
No, sorry, there's something different though.
Okay.
Because I think the way you're describing it is people kind of throw tests into the folder in an unorganized way to sort of submit them. There might not be a lot of coherence or structure to them. And then you're going through a curational process of organizing them, making sure that the right details are grouped in the right places and they build in a systematic fashion so they're easy to read. That all makes sense. What I'm asking is, can you take your organized structure that you've curated and always dump that as a JSON file so somebody can always just load the latest curated tests in JSON?
Yeah, that's what in the tests folder. For now, it's not. It is generated from curated tests. So there is no contributed tests here. This test is generated.
Cool. Okay. And then the only missing piece of that story there is when people throw tests into the inbox.
Yes, we can create different folder for inbox. Yeah. So then the final test, curated test, will be in test folder. Or people can throw this test in issue or in a Zulip chat, for example. The tests which John reported, I already incorporated into union tests. So they are part of this test, like nested union all and empty union all. So
sure, those are the JavaScripts, and the JSONs are down below.
JSONs are generated and they're here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I see John has a question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the sort of chuck tests into the inbox concept really makes a whole lot of sense to me, because yes, I guess you can just come up with a view definition, but you've also got to have test data that view definition is based off, and do you share test data between a group of tests and all that sort of thing. So I think yes, we want to lower the barrier for people to contribute tests as much as possible, but there is going to be some sort of task of sort of integrating it into what's already there as well. And like what we do with Pathling, I think I might have mentioned this last time, is that we sort of go the other way. We use the JSON as the sort of representation, but then we generate that back into JUnit sort of in a parameterized test fashion. So we would be authoring in the SQL on FHIR repository, and that would become Java tests rather than the other way around.
Yeah, here is a reference implementation of test runner, which do reverse, which like in your case, so it's walking through the test content and running them. So this is as well the reference implementation, which can show how you can write your own test runner for JSON tests. So it works both ways. Okay, maybe it's.
Yeah, so we wrote something very similar for Java that just walks through and turns them into Java tests.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Yes, but I think again, so eventually we can do the same for JavaScript. So just give me some time. I will try to cover, and then I will switch to JSON if we decide. Or maybe you will like this approach, and we'll write JavaScript tests as well, and we will generate that.
So if I had one proposal, it would just be to I don't know if you've already done this, but document how the test generation system works briefly in the README. So we don't have to, go through the recording or anything like that to understand how it works, so people can see it.
Mm-hmm.
It should be. I don't know if I've already.
Yeah, I started writing how to contribute, and yeah, I will probably document how to add this. Yeah, work on this.
All right, I will add that as a to-do.
For example, and then we will turn it into the test when we decide. And the behavior of union, and I think that for now we can discuss these topics which appearing mostly from testing. Yes, so we see that tests are generating stream of questions to the specification. Okay, sorry, I'm too late for me. I'm almost sleeping.
No worries. I think that sounds good. Any other comments or questions on the test infrastructure?
Maybe let's discuss. Oh, okay, and then switch to specific topics. Yes, which we discovered from tests. Sure. I would love to quickly discuss empty select. Is it exception or not? Then nested unions. How we treat union just like concatenation or not, or is there a specific meaning for that?
Sure, I think we can move towards specific questions. The first one you mentioned was empty select.
Yeah. So empty node. So do we consider it invalid in the view definitions like this? Yeah. So when this view is empty or the select is empty, say like this.
I think Josh had pointed out that that's actually invalid FHIR, since these things are FHIR resources. So it should be invalid already if we ran it through the logical model. So I guess the answer is yes, it's invalid, and I think it kind of implicitly is invalid now. But yeah, it would be. But making it sort of a concrete, explicit item seems worthwhile.
Do everybody agree with this is invalid?
I guess the question is there any use case where we'd want this? Because it seems like if you have a select with nothing in it, it's like that's never a desirable thing. So it makes sense to me to indicate that that's an error.
Sorry.
I was just going to say I came sort of similar to this. I was trying to come up with ways of creating tests to create empty things to test with. I had things like name where false, or the null literal, or whatever, to sort of come up with an empty selection to union with something else or whatever. And interestingly, yeah, I think the only way I could do it was for example, if I was going to sort of create a sub selection for name, which was based on empty, I had to use name where false, because the null literal is kind of untyped and you can't traverse into it in our implementation. But the reason I'm saying that is because I was just thinking in my head, is there sort of some sort of valid reason to create an empty selection? But I don't think there really is, in my view, a valid reason to have an empty selection in the definition.
When you're typing the new view definition, yes, you may try to run incomplete view definition, and that's the case. Because the other option is just to say that this statement returns empty set. Yes, so this will work as well. So if it's empty node, so then it just returns empty row set, and everything will work as well. To be honest, initially my JavaScript implementation fails on empty, and then I fixed so it doesn't fail, but returns empty. This doesn't break anything as well, but maybe a little bit more friendly. I don't know, it's a UX stuff. So some people love when it fails. If it's somebody don't like it.
I mean, a variation that we could make valid is we set the cardinality of select to 0, because you could have a view that has no select key at all, because that would be valid FHIR. Right now it's just set to 1. It's just indicating you always need to select something. But if we want to have a view that I guess doesn't, it seems like it's it'd only be useful for those sort of like testing needs, but maybe it's worthwhile to do.
It's like commenting, yeah, some statement. So you, in the middle of your definition, you can just like rename the select or something like or put some empty set and comment for some time. But again, so this is still tricky. I think the main question, do we really want to specify that something should fail, like behavior is undefined or something like this?
I am fine leaving this undefined, but it is a case that you can never get to through a valid FHIR resource that is a view definition. So it's sort of leaving undefined behavior for things that FHIR already excludes from valid syntax.
Unless you tried to do something tricky, you know, like put something in there like an ID or something, and then what's the behavior of that?
Yeah, so here empty means it doesn't contain any keyword, like for each, like working keyword, yeah. So then it's valid FHIR.
Yeah, I feel better about that. I don't know that we need to specify a behavior.
Yeah.
If we were going to specify one, the ones I would choose between would be it returns empty or it throws an error. I don't have a good way to choose between them.
Okay. Because this is kind of design decision, yes. So we can like, in such cases when it's unimportant, we can do undefined behavior. So implementation can decide what to do. Okay, so leave it without answer. For now, let's keep like invalid view. So be a little bit more strict. And the next question was about nested union. Is it similar to what you reported, John, with union all?
Yeah, I think it's the same test case, just with different elements, isn't it? Pretty sure.
And for me, for example, if it's functional model, we say like union all, and here is a for each function, and then we have union all and some expressions. And if union all as a function is it just concat, collection 1, collection 2, so then the behavior is quite clear. This will return the set of rows. So it's equal, like it's returned by for each, and then x. I mean, okay, concatenation, just concatenation of this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree as well. It might be, yeah, like maybe a pull request to kind of make that a little explicit so we can make sure we wordsmith it properly. But yeah, I think that what you described matches what I expect if we're on the same page there. And I mean, and maybe just really like the rule of thumb kind of is like a union. I mean, just think of like each one of these is sort of like is self-contained module. So if you have a union all, like whatever is above it shouldn't care whether it's a union all or just a select, right? And so yeah, basically union all produces, you know, the nested union all produces a collection of rows which is unioned with its parent, but the parent shouldn't have to know whether the nested one is a union all or if it's just a select. I think that seems like the sort of the logically, functionally pure behavior. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's what you described.
Okay, so then we covered, I don't know, what there were other discussions about columns, yes, but I don't remember the content.
I think there's like some column uniqueness constraints. I think that maybe, John, you had a PR that got merged, and that it was probably just something we had sitting out there, but probably should have merged a while ago, but is now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we resolved that a while ago, and it's just been sitting there. So that was just adding to the spec that columns should be unique in the result, right? So like, yes, we can have references to the same column for the purposes of unions and that sort of stuff, but columns have to be unique in the result, or otherwise we can't really deterministically query over them. So that hopefully there's no controversy on that one. The other one was the empty union. So if you do a union and it doesn't generate any rows, do we treat that as like an inner join or as a for each? Or do we sort of generate a null in the same as we do with for each or null? And my starting assumption there was that we would treat it as an inner join, like as a for each. So
yeah, I mean, so I think kind of using that heuristic that I think I mentioned as I mean, so if instead of a union all at that location, you had a select that produced no rows at that location, so just kind of replace that union all with a select and that replaced no rows, I would expect those two things to behave the same. And so if I recall correctly, then the for each, I mean, yeah, the select, you know, at that location, if it did not produce any rows, then that essentially is an inner join. And so I think that's the behavior I would expect as well. Again, like whether externally, from an external observer perspective, I mean, the union all behavior or a select behavior should be identical for how it's joined up through the tree. I see folks nodding and thumbs up, so hopefully I'm not terribly off base.
Yeah, just that's what an optimizer is going to do. If you have a union all that's empty, it's going to replace it with select. It'll rewrite it.
When I was thinking, we have a functions like union on, select, column, and for each or null. All of these functions have the same result. They're partial rows, and you can put this function in a place where this type of results are expected. Let's say for each have a slot for select, and you can put any of this function into this slot.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. There's a couple of ways to view the spec from, and then since I kind of like viewing it at that sort of functional perspective where it's like, there's a for each function, well, there's a union all function, and there's a select function, and you're dealing with a return value on the way up. So yeah.
And if we were to have a sub select, which was a for each or null, and it returned a null, then we would propagate that upwards. That's the only sort of sub case that bent my brain slightly.
I still think that nothing return null. It can return the empty collection or of rows or collection of rows. So there is it doesn't return scalar or null. So
I think it returns a row where the values are null, if I'm understanding the semantics right. But exactly one row.
So because for each or null doesn't return it.
There's always a set of columns in scope.
Yeah.
And for each or null has the behavior that if you weren't going to return any rows, if you were going to return 0 rows, then instead you return one row where all of your columns are explicitly null.
Yeah, with empty row. Yeah. So that
empty columns, so it's basically more like an outer join, right? So it's like
but it is not null.
It's a set of one row where every column is explicitly null.
Yeah, it's a row with the columns set to null. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
John,
it has columns. Yeah, it has columns. It just has the number of columns you asked for, but they're all set to null because there wasn't any matching data.
Yeah.
Right. So semantically, it's basically what you'd expect from like a left outer join if you were going from that parent to that child table where you get those columns.
Yeah, so that matches my assumption. So I wrote that into a test, so we can add that into the test suite. But I did notice that some of these cases, the old reference implementation didn't handle, and I had a bit of a look at what it would take to update that, but I haven't done that quite yet. The other one was collection. So, when you say collection, so say it was, given name, and you say name.given collection is true, and then you get it as an array. I noticed in the old reference implementation, if it happens to be just only one given name, it won't actually put out an array. It'll just put out a single value. Like it sort of puts out the value based on the actual data rather than what it should be. And I was trying to figure out how to get that information from the sort of parsing of the FHIR path and whatever. But because it's JavaScript and because it's just operating on instances, it obviously works quite differently to, say, our Spark implementation, where that's sort of strictly typed to always be an array. I feel like it should be an array, like even if there is only one given name.
It should be an array. If it's set collection true, so then it's going to be, even if it's only one element. So I don't think here like duck typing. That's why I think why we introduce collection true. Yes, so it like, I don't know, doesn't provide any other implementation. If you set collection true, then FHIR pass always return collection. So it's going to be collection, whatever. The like arity in the FHIR pass you can deduce.
So what I might try to do is sort of port my tests and merge in what you've done and get as many of them passing as I can, but I might also just like tap somebody on the shoulder to sort of have a look and make sure it all makes sense. And if I need help updating the reference implementation, Nikolai, maybe you can.
I'm open to have a call and we can like just pair programming, so do pair programming on this.
Yes, and I feel like, I mean, these things, these are great conversations because I think it's also surfacing like, I mean, the ambiguities that remain in the specification. So yeah, I'm trying to like jot down. I'm not sure if anyone else has been taking notes. I just opened up trying to jot down a couple of these, like to kind of make sure we update the spec as well. I mean, particularly around the nested repeated union all flavors that we described there. So I can try to follow up on those, but if others have, I guess I can start on that. But if others have notes, because I just literally just jotted a couple things down, so I probably missed something here. I guess I can watch the recording too.
I'll just mention two more quickly while we've got a bit of time left. One of them was low boundary, high boundary. Is this implementation specific? I don't know. We don't need to answer that today, but that was just a question I had in my head, with relation to precision and dates and whatever. The other one was of type. So if we say, is the argument to of type a FHIR type or a FHIR path type, or could it be both? It is the question I had. So if we have, like, say, an observation with like a value string and we want to select out that string value using of type, can we use FHIR.string? Can we use string? Can we use either? Which should we test for? So those are the other two questions I had.
About of type, I'm not expert on FHIR paths, but I think you should use just string. So I don't know, Josh, do you remember this? So you could not use like FHIR.string, or you can, or FHIR path.string.
I don't know. The only use I'm directly familiar with for of type is navigating through FHIR choice types rather than arbitrary type filtering, but I'm not actually sure how it's defined. Maybe it's defined in a more general way.
Maybe we can go and look into FHIR. I think we should not go too far from FHIR path implementation. We can narrow, but not like step on the side.
Right, that's probably a good one for Ryan's list of technical issues or questions to chase down. So I think that would be really useful to keep a track. I keep some track, but I don't keep necessarily a verbatim track of everything. So I see we're at time. I think that might be a good place to end. Any final thoughts or to-do? All right, there's nothing else. I'll post these to-dos to the channel. And then one thing I wanted to say is that I know we've delayed it a couple of times. So if everyone is good, I think maybe next week we have that SQL generation discussion that we have put off for a couple of weeks. How does that sound to everybody? Okay, so I'll make a note of that. All right, I think that's it. So, all right, good to see everybody. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. And John, feel free to ping me and schedule the session.
Thank you. No worries. See ya.
Bye.
All right, bye.